YouTube, hi, I'm Biernacki. If you haven't met me before, I'm okay at Jiu Jitsu. This is Rory, he's pretty okay too. We run bjjconcepts.net. These are the two best non-escapes for beginners and really for everybody. When we're dealing with the mount, the essential problem is that our partner has our hips somewhat under their control. And what we need to do is either create a frame or a lever to escape. We kind of break everything in Jiu-Jitsu down conceptually to frames and levers. Not literally everything, but for the most part, most of the situations that you're going to be getting into in Jiu-Jitsu involve a frame-lever dynamic where your partner's using a frame against you and you want to turn that frame into a lever or disconnect it, prevent your partner from utilizing that frame. And then as far as like mostly offensively, although you'll see in this video how we'll apply the lever concept defensively, offensively we want to use levers to manipulate our opponent. Most of the submissions that you're using on anybody are lever based, right? An arm bar, a kimura, a leg lock. Even chokes have a certain lever mechanic where you're utilizing your arms as levers to apply pressure to somebody's neck. So we're going to give you a frame-based, which a frame just supports weight, right? We're using our skeleton to support weight. We're going to give you a frame-based escape. We're going to give you a lever-based escape. And the idea is that they should work together. If anybody sells you the idea that it's easy to escape the mount or any negative position, that should just really raise your suspicions. Because if it was easy to escape, if you could just do an escape to get out of a really dominant position in Jiu-Jitsu, then frankly, Jiu-Jitsu wouldn't work. If I could do all the work of sweeping you from the bottom, passing your guard, gaining the mount, and you can just escape easily. That's not to say that it can't be done, and good practitioners certainly can do this. If you're a beginner, you know, somebody might give you the mount and then escape easily. That's because of a drastic information and skill asymmetry between the two of you. I can let my white belts into any position I want and get out of it. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, and it doesn't mean that it's easy, because if this guy mounts me, it's gonna be a bloody nightmare for me to get out. So, when we're dealing with the mount and we're trying to create this frame-based escape, the frames that we'll be utilizing are going to be our arms. And when we use our arms, we want to create, not just our arms, but overall our body, we want to create a scaffold. We want to create a support structure on top of which we're going to place our partner's hips. Anything that allows me to disconnect my partner's hips from mine is going to help me create the space underneath of that I'm going to use to extract my own hips. If I just try to do, again, as a beginner, you've probably learned like a knee elbow escape. So I'm just going to go like, and hip escape like this. Yeah, that's never going to work because I've got my partner's hips directly pinning mine. If I create a bridge without utilizing some kind of frame assist, it's also not going to work. If all I do is bridge, Rory's just going to like ride the bridge. Like if you ever see people do horseback riding, they disconnect their hips slightly to meet the space. So if I attempt to disconnect his hips by bridging, he's just going to choose to disconnect them slightly and absorb the force. So our hips haven't effectively disconnected. What I'm going to look to do when I bridge is knee my partner in the butt. So I'm utilizing a frame and I'm accessing my partner's spine or my partner's hips as a lever. When I do that, I'll create my scaffold by reinforcing my hand. My right arm is across my partner's hips. So my right humerus here, my elbow against his hip, is creating a frame. My left arm is supporting that frame. If I don't place like the bones of my wrist, the radius and the ulna underneath my wrist here, let's say I just go like this, or let's say I just grab his pants, then this frame is not going to be as sturdy as if I do this. So I want my hand underneath. You can see now just by knocking him forward, try to put your hips back down on me.
Basically float on you.
Exactly. This is the scaffold we were talking about. It's going to be made up of either my elbow against the inside of his knee and my elbow against his hip. So I control the hip and the lever to the hip. It's one of the most important concepts in Jiu-Jitsu, is if you control the hip and the lever to your partner's hip, then you're going to be able to be effective with whatever. Whether it's a sweep like the tripod sweep, which we covered in another video, whether it's a guard pass like the leg drag, which we covered in another video, those are examples of the hip and lever control dynamic. That concept is universal. So in this case, I'm going to use that hip and lever control to escape the mount. I establish a frame, I place a frame underneath it, I bridge and I knee my partner in the butt, shifting his weight onto this scaffold that I have created. Let's rotate this way so we can see. From here, I'm going to place my foot into base as I attempt to invert. Because if I try to hip escape now, I still may not be able to access his leg. This leg has been made light But depending on your partner's height, we're both about the same height. So at this point, I can start the hip escape and bring my knee in and I'll probably be successful. But if I was shorter and Rory was the same size, then yeah, exactly, like I wouldn't be able to move my hip out. So I'm now gonna make a second bridge where I begin the process of inverting. I'm essentially withdrawing my left leg while I turn my right leg to the ground. So now my knees, my spine, and my elbows are creating the scaffold, and my partner's resting on top of this. I know what you're thinking. He's gonna take my back. But my elbow, let's rotate back this way again. My elbow is framing his hip. So when I create this frame here and I start to turn over, as long as my elbow stays here, connected to my partner's hips, he can't take my back. If I remove the frame, again, jiu-jitsu is a game of frames and levers. If I'm not using a frame against him, he's gonna use a lever, in this case my spine, against me. I keep this frame, I escape my hips backwards. The scaffold that he's resting on is made up now of both of my elbows. I insert my left knee underneath, creating a butterfly hook. It's very important that I insert my bottom knee. People are tempted in situations like this to bring the top knee in because it's the closest. This is a lever dynamic that he's gonna be able to exploit. Notice how this is twisting my spine? I can't properly maintain my frame with my upper body because my spine is too rotated this way. Whereas if I bring this knee in, it's reinforced by my biceps being underneath it and my spine is not twisted up. So I can frame as is necessary and move my hips as is necessary to gain whichever guard I prefer. Make sure when you are escaping, whether it's the mount, side control, any dominant position, whenever possible, you bring your bottom knee in first. If you bring your top knee in, your posture and your structure are going to be compromised and you'll be much less effective. Doesn't mean it'll never work, but if it works, it'll be because your partner ignored a giant opportunity. So once again, full motion here. I create a frame. I create a frame on the inside here. I reinforce that frame. I bridge, I knee my partner in the butt. I put his weight onto my arms. I don't try to bridge when his weight is on me here. I first bridge to shift his weight forward onto my arms. Now I put my right foot in base, big bridge, and I've got my hips moving out against his leg. If I need the extra space, I invert. I put both knees on the mat or one knee and one foot. Still keeping his weight on the scaffold that I've created out of my spine, my legs, and my elbows. Now I can move my hips back and put my knee underneath, bottom knee whenever possible. From here, depending on what you know, you could attack leg locks, you could attack sweeps, or you can just get yourself back to a guard of your choosing. So that's the first escape. This is the second one. I know this is a long video, but I promise it's going to be shorter than John Danaher's mount escape video, so if you don't have the time to watch his, and you should, they're excellent, you can watch this one. Same thing as in evidence, but I can't get my elbow inside. Let's say I've bridged and his knee is just too tight. A lot of people will climb to a higher mount with their knees in your armpits. I'm still keeping this frame. I'm going to extend my bottom leg so that I'm going to be able to trap his ankle between my thighs. I do as many bumps as is necessary and I reach down and grab his ankle. Again, I would not do this if I could get my elbow to the inside, but I can't. In the gi, you can grab the pants. I recommend getting good at this at grabbing the shin because it'll work gi and no gi. I do not try to lift my partner's leg when his weight is settled down. I bump him, shifting his weight forward, putting his weight into his hands, making his legs light so that I can access them. I trap his ankle in the pit of my knee. This is allowing me control of the end of the lever. I maintain the frame here. Now my bottom thigh, my left leg, creates a fulcrum underneath of his shin. I'm simultaneously curling my leg at the ankle, accessing the end of the lever, driving my thigh up, creating a fulcrum here. So I've got that lever dynamic. I'm now going to reinforce his knee with a frame using my elbow. If he tries to put his knee back on the ground, he can't do it while I slowly hip escape into position. Now my hands, and it's important when I say my hands, I'm using the base, like the heel of my palm here to frame his hips. I do not ever want to make this shape. This is a wrist lock shape. If you make this shape where there's pressure at the end, yeah, go ahead, you're gonna crack my wrist. You do not ever want to put someone's weight on your palm or on your fingers here. You want to put their weight directly on this frame. This is good structure. This is horrible structure. I've seen people's wrists explode from this. I'm framing with the heel of my palm. Now I can move my knee inside Framing him, bottom knee first as we discussed earlier, because if this leg was caught in here and I just kind of jammed this knee in too early, it can be smashed. So I want to make sure that I bring my bottom knee in first, then my top knee in, and I can play guard from here. These two escapes will work together. You will attempt to do one, and your partner's defense to that will allow you to attempt to do the other, and you'll switch back and forth until you're successful. A successful escape from the mount will basically mean that you will have tried 4, 5, 6, 10 attempts and gotten one of them. That's how escapes work. Don't be frustrated as a beginner that you did a move that attempted to escape the mount and it didn't work. It's supposed to be difficult to escape these positions. Again, if someone's telling you otherwise, they're lying to you. If somebody escapes the mount easily, it's because they're just way better than you are and they allowed you to mount them, or they're exhausted, they're tired, they're making mistakes, there's a size difference. There are lots of reasons that people can easily do something that don't involve the necessary effectiveness of the technique in absolute terms. In absolute terms, the person mounting you has a tremendous advantage. Be prepared to do a shit ton of work to get out. But if you use two techniques connected like this properly, you time them correctly, you utilize the proper concepts, you should be successful.